What's going on YouTube? We just finished up the 6-foot privacy fence. Did it pretty cheaply and made a video all about that. Made some final tweaks to it, and we're overall happy with the look and how it all turned out. So we're going to try to make some shutters to match it using similar fence posts, panels. And with that, I want to show y'all little steps to make something out of these cheap little fence panels. These are the windows that we're making shutters for, and you can see one of the fence panels here. This is just the little 6-foot high, $1.65 from Lowe's fence panels, and we're going to do 3 wide and then a little section of it sideways to make some shutters. I'll show you all that in the backyard. I've already started on some of them. And one challenge that I have that most people will not is I have this little divider here that is about 5/8 thick or so, and to combat that, I'm just going to do the same stringer on the front and the back to make them just sit off the wall just a little. But I'll explain all that. Here's a look at the other side of our fence and our gate. If you've got any questions about that, let me know. Or if you're a fan of lifted trucks, please check out my Grapaholics channel. But let's take a look what we've got going on back here. So I'm cutting these 3 at a time just to make sure they're all even, and I'm measuring each time and using a straight edge to cut these all evenly. You see I got them clamped here so they don't shift, and it's just quicker to cut them 3 at a time. But here's 3 that have already been cut, and you can see obviously I haven't cut this piece to length yet, but this is going to be basically what the shutter looks like when it's all said and done. And pretty happy with it. We're going to use the same stain as we did on the fence to make it all match. I'll be sure to show you that. This is the stain sprayer I used on the fence, and I'm going to apply the stain in the same manner just so it matches and isn't any different. You know, if you paint it on, it may go a little bit thicker on there, so we're going to try to match it. But this is the stain we picked up, transparent walnut, and we have a few more of the fence posts here. We're doing 2 windows, 3 on each side to make 1 shutter. So 2 shutters per window, and then you need an extra board in the back. So we went with, let's see, it'll be 3 on each one, so 6 on each side plus 1, so 7 for each window makes 2 shutters, so 14 for 2 windows. But since we're doing the extra one in the back, we picked up an extra 2, so we have a total of 16 boards here, and they're $1.65 a piece. You can see it's a pretty cheap setup here. And then the most expensive thing was the stain. We also have some exterior wood screws. I just kind of matched up the length. So to go through just the 3 of these, once I have them all stacked up, I've got these smaller ones here, and then to actually attach them to my wood siding, I have the 3-inch ones here. But y'all can figure out how big of a screw you need based on your application. Well, let's get started on getting these all cut up. Alright, and I used this cinder block here just to give me something to push on so it didn't slide. But that's a pretty easy way to do it if you're by yourself. And now I have all of my panels cut except for the horizontal ones. After measuring 3 of them put together, I'm looking at about 17 inches. So I'm going to be cutting these to 17 inches. I'm going to go ahead and get those all cut down. I'm going to need 1 at the bottom, 1 at the top for each of them. And there is 4, so that's going to be 8 pieces there. And then, like I said, I'm doubling up because I'm going to put some on the back as a spacer to make it sit properly on my wall. Now I've cut all my horizontal pieces here, and like I said, I'm going to have 1 on the top and bottom, or front and back. But typically you could just get away with 1 on the front, so you'll only need 1 extra fence panel per shutter, and then you'll have a piece here and a piece there. I'm going to go ahead and get these all lined up, and if you notice how tight the spacing is here compared to this one, it's just not shaped perfectly. It is a little bit bent and it won't go flush against there. So to make that all even, you just want to stick something in there and space it out. And in this case, this little paint mixer will work, but pretty much anything. And you want to leave that in there. You can get a couple of them and just get that spacing set before you attach them. And then you also want to figure out where you want this in relation to the top or bottom. So take some time measuring that, make sure you get it exactly where you want it and that they're all the same, so that it looks really good from the road and up close as well. I decided to do 8 inches from the end, and I went ahead and just drew a line on my paint mixer here just to make sure that it's 8 inches all the way across on all these, just to make it go quicker. And this is gonna be the back, since these are a little bit dirtier. So I'm gonna start all my screws and then flip it over and then put my front panel on. So these screws that I'm gonna go in first, I'm not gonna be able to see at the end. So these aren't gonna be dead center. But when I put the front on, which is gonna go all the way through the shutter and into the side of the house, I'm gonna make sure that they're nice and evenly spaced out. So let's see if I can get these attached without them shifting. Most of you would be done with your first shutter now, and you'd probably have these more centered. Like I said, this is going to be the back of mine. So now I'm going to flip it over and line up the front piece here, but you can see how the spacing looks. Pretty happy with it so far. So I'm going to get another piece of horizontal board here and then get that set up again at 8 inches and line it up with the one underneath, and then I'll finish putting the screws that I started in the rest of the way, and that's going to hold this one in place until I can get it up to the house and then put the longer screw all the way through all 3 pieces of wood and into the siding on the house. Just to make this as easy as possible on myself, I'm using this center block to hold the top one down, and I'm just going to screw it in from the bottom so I don't mess up my alignment here. Alright, hopefully that is enough to hold that front piece on. And you can see there is no screw coming through, and that is nice and snug on there, and that's going to keep it in place until I can hold it up and get it in the right spot where I want it. And I'll make sure I have nice even screws so that when you look at it up close, it doesn't look like it was made out of $1.65 fence posts. And that's the first one done. If you have something on your siding that is kind of sticking out, and you may want to use 2 like I did, but typically you can get away with the 1. I think it looks pretty good so far. We'll see once we get some stain on it. I'll go ahead and stand it up, take a look at it. And you can see why I decided to make this side the back. It doesn't look quite as sharp as the front here. But there's the first shutter. Sitting on unlevel ground there, but looks pretty good. Yeah, it's on a hill, but I'm happy with it. See how the rest come out. So there's a look at the first one. So we made it to be the same size as the actual window, not the huge siding all the way around. We'll see if we like that when it's all said and done, but I think it's gonna look pretty good on there, especially with some stain. But so far so good. Here's all 4 shutters. Now that they're all cut and screwed together, you can see how the screws didn't go all the way through, so you don't see them here. These are going to be on the front, and then my mounting screws are going to go right through the middle of them, nice and evened out. I'm going to go ahead and sand them down a little bit. They've got some rough edges here and there, and just before I put the stain on there, I want to try to get them all smooth and even. You don't necessarily have to do that. Just kind of depends on the look you're going for. but I think it's a nice little final touch. And it'd be easier if I had sanded it all before I cut it, but I was pretty excited to go ahead and get them put together. So let's get to sanding, and then we'll go ahead and stain them and get them put on. Got this simple little sander here, just gonna try to knock off these rough edges real quick before we stain it. Just finished sanding the last one. I think they look pretty good so far. We'll see how this stain application goes. Hopefully it will match the fence pretty well. I've got my sprayer, my stain all laid out, and I'm using this post from my old chain link fence to prop this shutter up, just so I'm not getting any stain on something I don't want to, and I can do both sides at once, hopefully. So this will be the front. I'm going to start by staining the back, just to make sure the tip is right on the sprayer, and I make sure I get a good even coat. And I made sure when I was building this that I put the less nice looking side on the back on each of these panels, so I looked them all over pretty well. You can see this one has a bunch of black spots all over it, but it looks good on the other side. So just taking a little time to make sure it looks good. So let's see how this stain goes, and hopefully it goes on nice and evenly. Check out how ridiculous these little gloves look on me. These are my wives, and they just don't quite fit, but I want something to keep this stuff off my hands, but I don't know how I feel about having these tiny little hands. It looks crazy. Like I said, I'm going to start on the back in case it doesn't come out right, but I'm going to keep on going if it is working out, and I like how it looks. So it seems like the very beginning and the very end, it comes out pretty drippy and just gross, so I'm going to try not to let that make spots all over it. So it came on really dark. They're way darker than the fence, so I'm trying to wipe it off, but it actually looks really cool. You can see where I've already wiped it, and then here I have it, and there's also some spots where it dripped onto it. So hopefully that will wipe off pretty well. Yeah, looks a lot better once you wipe it. So this may be how most people are gonna apply the stain anyway, but I just thought the spray would be easier. But I think this is gonna look really good once this is all said and done here. Oh yeah, it's really thick down there, but it's coming off pretty well. It's just kind of soaked in just enough. So yeah, I put way too much on, but at least it's coming off, and I like how it looks. Right, here's the final product. Now that it's mostly dry, we're gonna test fit them and get them put on the siding. instead of holding a tape measure up to this the whole time, I just drew a line on this paint mixer to make sure it was the exact same height from the bottom of the trim here to the bottom of this, and that way when I held it up and stepped back I could make sure they were both even. That's what the first two look like. I have a couple more screws to put in this one, but so far so good. I'm liking how it turned out. Here's the finished product. I'm really happy with how they came out. I was a little concerned about them being the size of the window as opposed to the size of the trim around it, but I think it looks really realistic, as if they were actual shutters based on how big they are, and I think they would have been a little too big otherwise. So let me know what y'all think. This was a pretty cheap project. Like I said, they're $1.65 per fence post, so all in all, with stain and everything, this could be a $30 project depending on what tools you needed to buy. I already had the sander and the saw and everything, but definitely a $50 or less project unless you're getting, you know, extravagant with what tools you need to buy. So thank y'all for watching, and let me know if you have any questions. I'll be sure to get back to you.